both.
Once the show starts. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, person, host, but I'm known as Rocha Fed around these parts. I'm really excited to be diving in to talk some big Star Wars stuff here on this particular episode. Joined, as always, by my OG co-host there, the great Laura Kelly, co-host Force Toast Pod. How are you, Laura? How are things?
I'm doing great. It's a happy new year to you both. I don't think I've seen you since the new year. So yay, very exciting. And I'm excited to get to celebrate the new year and Star Wars with you both.
Absolutely. And it looks like, we're dealing with some LA fires there in LA. And it looks like behind you, Coruscant is a little bit mirroring the color of the sky in LA there for right now as we're talking about it.
Was that insensitive? I should have changed it. Sorry, I didn't make that connection. So my bad.
It's just that the sun's going down, but this is what it looks like there. And speaking of LA, a gentleman who was in LA with me for a while and is now in San Diego hanging out, avoiding the madness that's going on there. And our hearts go out to everybody who's affected by it. But the great Kevin Smets, how are you, Smasher?
I'm good. Thoughts are out. I have some friends that had to evacuate their homes, and my old place that I lived at during the Smasher days is in danger now. So it's kind of crazy. I had a lot of memories there. So.
How's your boy Johnny? Is he all right up there? Is he okay? What's
they're on the you're talking about Kaiser?
Kaiser, yeah.
They're in the South Bay, so they should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Manhattan Beach. But yeah. Crazy times.
Guys are living the high life. I respect that. Yeah, smart, getting out of the main city. Yeah, it's crazy out there. So as we said, sending our love and our thoughts and prayers out to anybody who's affected by this stuff, and no matter how bad it is. Hopefully we will do our job, if you're watching our show, of entertaining you with the stuff we're talking about and maybe taking your mind off what's happening there currently for anybody who's going through anything that's going on there. So we're excited to dive in to Star Wars and talk about, certainly we're going to spoiler review episode 7 of Jedi Way. But last week we didn't get a chance to review episode 6. So we'll have some our overall thoughts there before we jump into episode 7. And we got some James Mangold news as well. And before we jump in, to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button. Of course, subscribe to the great stuff going on with both of these people here with Laura Kelly's Force Toast Pod, and of course Kevin Smets' KOTOR and the squad situation going on, Star Wars Squad. He is now, his shorts and his TikTok videos are burrowing their way into my feed now, so I have to be a good thing and promote his stuff as well. So
thank you.
Make sure you follow both of them and what they've got going on. All right, let's jump into it. Let's not waste any time here, man. James Mangold. This is some big news that dropped it. Smets wanted us to talk about here on the show, so let's get into it. Of course, Mangold's has a complete unknown out, the Bob Dylan biopic that is out there for people to enjoy. I think it's fantastic. Timothy Chalamet, Monica Barbaro, Elle Fanning doing great work, and Ed Norton as well, all being considered for nominations as award season is kicking off here. But it's talking about Dawn of the Jedi, and of course, he is working on something here with Beau Willimon. He is set to take this on, the Star Wars situation. And here's his quotes. The Star Wars movie would be taking place 25,000 years before any known Star Wars movies takes place. It's an area and a playground that I've always wanted to explore and that I was inspired by as a teenager. I'm not that interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point that it's almost immovable, and you can't please anybody. So some interesting comments there. So Kevin, you wanted to bring this up and talk about it. So first dibs, my friend, what are your thoughts on this idea that he wants to go 25,000 years away, nothing to do with lore, and essentially create his own lore in Star Wars here? What are your thoughts?
Well, when filmmakers create their own lore, we know nothing can go wrong, right? Everybody's going to universally love it.
Especially in Star Wars.
Oh, I was hoping for a spit take there. I almost I had it timed, but I'm excited. And this kind of ties into my overall thoughts for Skeleton Crew, which we'll get to, but when something is like it's going to have meaning, like as the global overall story of like the fate of the galaxy, as they would say. And so to see I'm having some focus issues, but to see them go so far back where he is literally, I just hope that when they tell him, when Kathleen Kennedy's like, yeah, you'll have no handcuffs, that they mean it. Like, let him Let the boy cook, right? Because
Right.
a lot of times they're told that, and then all of a sudden they have a room full of people saying, "Well, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that," and then all of a sudden, that's why a lot of artists probably depart and leave. So I'm looking forward to it. As much as I am into the KOTOR lore and the Revan and all of that stuff, like, and I think an Old Republic show would be awesome. This is interesting. This is intriguing to see, like, literally the dawn of the beginnings. I don't think this would be made if they didn't have these other movies on the slate, you know? So I think, although what movies are, the Rian Johnson trilogy when that's done. But
whenever that happens.
But I'm looking forward to something that's outside the box. And this, again, ties into my Skeleton Crew later, that it's just, I have this Star Wars Super Watch that I like go through, and I always have to start over because I always run out of time. But it's cool that it would probably be the very first thing you watch in the timeline. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what do you think, Laura? What are your thoughts on these comments?
I'm actually really excited about this because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like what I get out of the High Republic, and that they're only like 200 years before the movies, and they're really not tied or burdened by the story of the Skywalkers, which I really appreciate. I think it opens up the sandbox for all new fun adventures and characters to get to play and do whatever they want. And you're right, you're not handcuffed by anything. Right. So I think that this is a real positive. I'm glad that it sounds like it's going well so far. It sounds like him and Beau Willimon are working on a script at the moment. And I think that this is probably a good strategy to maybe be placing more Star Wars projects in areas where you're not tied down with existing lore. There's so many, we've seen so many exits in these projects that have come and gone, but all because, I'm sure, at least in part, that these creators want to be able to create. They don't want to be tied down by existing stuff. But at the same time, you've got all the Star Wars fans that we need it to connect. We need it to all be canon. It needs to all be fitting. Right. Otherwise, you're just opening up a whole new can of worms. So there's a balance to be found there, but it sounds like he's got a good spot where he's at. Kevin, I think I've asked this before, and I don't remember what the answer is. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Where does 25,000 years before coincide with the Old Republic? Does that go even farther back, or like, are we closer in time than 25,000?
No, Old Republic is like a couple thousand years.
Okay, right. So that.
This is like 23 or 24. So it's a couple thousand years. It's actually I'm embarrassed. I don't have my own crawl memorized. I'll look that up for you. But yeah, we're talking. This is like at least like 22,000 years before even the KOTOR.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that he said this. I mean, this reminds me, and I know it's sometimes crossing the streams, people get upset, but like Star Trek did this with Discovery, right? They went like 1,000 years or 3,000 years into the future, whatever it was, because people were coming after them for the lore and the canon stuff that was going on, because they were playing around the same time as Spock, and a younger Spock, and they're like, well, this wouldn't happen, that would happen, so they're like, screw it, we're just going 1,000 years in the future, we're going to create our own thing, and you remove the handcuffs, as Mangold is referring to. And I understand that as a creator, you want to come and tell your own story. And sometimes being tied to all of this stuff can restrict your creativity and not let you spread your wings a little bit and create what you want to create. And look at James Mangold. He has done this in a number of areas, both about real people and franchises, right? Like he did this with Indiana Jones, kind of did what he wanted to do with Logan. He kind of did what he wanted to do with the lore and what have you there with the Fox X-Men movie. And then recently, just now with a Bob Dylan film, moving some things around to kind of mess around with the lore and what actually happened in real life with his life. And then the Johnny Cash film as well, moving some things around, painting characters in a certain way that maybe weren't 100% correct in how he was approaching it, because the overall story here is what he wanted to get to. The message, the emotions, the actual core of what he wanted people to get coming out of his movie was what was important there. And the characters had to be in service of that. So I think it's good. Let him cook. Let him do what he wants to do. Let's see what he can create. I don't believe that they're going to not be looking over his shoulder. And I wonder how much of this might be connected to the news that we got earlier, Kevin, about the KOTOR stuff a few days ago as well, that the KOTOR series might be in motion. And is James Mangold is his movie being moved up possibly so that it can lay a little bit of the groundwork and lore for KOTOR to borrow from or use that would connect to their overall lore that they created in their own project. So what do you think about that, Kev? Do you think that's possible?
Well, you guys know I've been dealing with some personal things, so I didn't even know this. You just broke the news to me that they're doing a KOTOR series. By the way, it's 4,000 years. The opening crawl line is 4,000 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire.
Right.
But no,
it's rumored to be happening. Daniel RPK is saying that it's happening, so which means it's close to possibly being greenlit. So, I don't want to say that's official yet. So, yeah.
Nice. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, 21,000 years before KOTOR is a lot of ground to cover. So it would be interesting, though, if they would do something to tie into it, whether it's like the first Jedi Temple or, and they'll probably figure out a way to tie, like Octu, or, I mean, like there might be some opportunities to tie it into the, obviously a lot can happen in 20,000 years. What were we doing 20,000 years ago? What were you doing, Laura, 20,000 years ago?
Put me on the spot. I don't know. I don't remember.
But yeah, that's exciting. And wow, I'll have to look into that news you just broke for me, Rocha. That's
cool. Yeah. Daniel RPK reported that. So what do you think, Laura? Do you think they might be? Is this maybe the reason why they're moving to Mangold's film, or is it really attached to the fact that there's issues with the Rey movie and other stuff, and maybe this is a way to kind of take a break from all the canon stuff and forge a whole new path essentially with James Mangold's movie?
No, I think they need a movie and they need it now. So I think they're just like, whatever is closest, let's just go with it. The KOTOR thing is interesting because I feel like every couple of years we hear something about a Knights of the Old Republic, something related to like a series or a movie that something's happening. I think a couple of years ago there was like an experience at Comic-Con or something, and Comic-Con that you could go to, and people were kind of reading into that a little bit. So this news pops up every now and then unfortunately it doesn't go anywhere. I would love to see it go somewhere for Kevin's sake, because I would love to be as excited for him as he's going to be about the potential of something like that happening. Yeah. So that would be cool, but at this point it's so hard to put stock into it because, again, I feel like just every couple of years we hear this and then it goes nowhere. So I don't know, like most things in Star Wars, I think the key is to just keep expectations low.
The fear about a KOTOR show, which would actually help me for some reason, negative. Well, so when people crap on all the Disney Star Wars, I have a huge fan base that always writes comments, and I never like them or like thumbs up it, but they'll always write like, I don't watch Disney Star Wars. I only watch your KOTOR stuff. So a lot of people say, which is kind of a compliment. Like they feel like our KOTOR stuff is more like in line with like George Lucas era stuff. If KOTOR were to come out and be a fart in an elevator like the Acolyte, I don't know if that would hurt my KOTOR movies or if more people would be like, well, at least we still have the Kevin KOTOR movies. You know what I mean? So I enter in like I was all excited, and then I read the article just now. Like I wasn't not paying attention. I was kind of skimming it. Right. And then just realizing like, this also, it's kind of like for Laura, the High Republic era, and then Acolyte came, and it's like, now will they ever go back to High Republic era after that? Right. So sorry, I'm feeling a lot of emotions.
No, double-edged sword. I get it.
They're always stuck in the middle. Like they're always now with all the stuff. Like, so where do we go? People don't want the Skywalker. People do want the Skywalker. People want to do anything, but they still want it to feel like the old stuff. And so, it's a really tough time, I think, for Star Wars all around, man. We'll see what happens. But something that's not a tough time for them right now is, of course, Skeleton Crew. It's doing really well in terms of the reception overall from most of the sections of the fandom. People are still trying to find little things. They are fine. People are still trying to find little things they don't like about it. But overall, I would say it's being well received. As we said at the top of the show, we didn't get a chance to review episode 6. So here's a moment to give our thoughts overall. Laura, let's start with you. What did you think of episode 6 here? We saw the crew essentially split up and Fern learn how to become a captain by the end of this episode. And we saw KB and Wim come back, get closer as friends. And we heard KB reveal how she, doesn't want to go to zero friends again, and that it matters her connection with Fern. But, she had to say something. And Wim, just taking care of her and making sure she's okay. They all end up back on the ship. Jod has his issues going on with Brutus, and he's been captured essentially and taken captive thanks to Pocket. And then the ship, as it's about to get destroyed, sheds its skin and becomes this sleek, lean machine, this Onyx Cinder, with the crew fully aboard now as the Skeleton Crew, not needing Jod, heading to At Attin. So What did you think of this episode? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? Your overall thoughts?
First of all, the bit with the ship at the very end, like I normally am not in Star Wars for like vessels, ships, space battles. Like that's just not, it's not really why I'm here. It's fine, but it's not the thing I get excited about. But seeing that ship like shed its skin like a snake was really cool. That that's such an innovative idea to do something different in Star Wars when it comes to ships and vessels. So that was very, very cool. I liked getting to like hone in on KB a little bit. She was the one we were sort of lacking some of the backstory, and like we knew there was a story there because I mean, like what is happening with this, and we finally got that story, and I thought that it was so much more interesting than I could have expected. So I really enjoyed getting to get a little bit more of the KB download. And seeing her bond with Wim a little bit, seeing the kids split up into these different groups and have to sort of adapt and learn in different ways was really exciting. And then ultimately seeing them come together at the end, I thought worked really well. I think the trash crabs, like, I don't know if that was a hit or miss for a lot of people. I wasn't on social media much that week because it was like that week between Christmas and New Year's, and I just wasn't seeing. So I wasn't really sure how this episode was overall reviewed. But I really enjoyed it, and I thought the trash crabs were really cute, actually. So I would not mind seeing them again at some point. Overall, I walked away pretty positive from this episode. I really enjoyed it, but Kevin's been the one that's been sort of on the fence and hit or miss with this show. So curious to see where you landed with episode 6, Kevin.
My favorite part of episode 6 was a behind the scenes snippet I saw of episode 6 where they talked about the making of the crab and how they used a lot of model parts, all from like other models from the Star Wars. Like they have everything at their disposal. So it was really cool. There's like an R2 unit hidden on there and C-3PO, pieces of the Falcon. And that was really interesting to see how much, and it's cool. Like I don't know if it was stop motion. It could because they had
big crab was. I know that they mentioned that, but the little ones, I don't know.
So easy to do it in CG, but like they did stop motion, like shades of Harryhausen. So I thought that was really innovative and great on the part of the filmmakers to do that, and just a cool thing to like try. And I did think I will say the KB storyline too. It's like really cool. Like I mean, as for someone like with like handicaps, there's like it was going to like where she couldn't move and stuff like that, and I thought that was cool that like it called attention to that, and it felt like sometimes it's cool when you can like relate something to like real world, and I think a lot of people can kind of relate to KB that either have grown up with a handicap or in a wheelchair or can't walk and stuff like that, and she she was very vulnerable in those scenes where she couldn't move, and like those scenes like actually moved me. So I actually I thought that the overall the episode was fine. I'll get into it when we get into the next episode. But I did appreciate the behind the. So for my takeaways from that episode was I thought that the filmmaking process for the crab was fantastic, and I do agree that it was a very unique way for them to escape with the ship like that. It's a good analogy with the snake. And then again, I thought that KB shined in this episode.
Yeah, I really liked this episode. I know people having issues with episode 4. I can totally understand that. And you could argue that this is kind of like a sister of that episode because it's much more focused on the kids. It's kind of kiddie oriented. But I think how things were handled in this episode were so much better than episode 4. I think the connection of them switching partners I thought was great. Having Fern having to learn how to be a leader rather than just bossing people around or seeing things through her own prism. If I can do it, why can't you do it? That kind of thing, which is always something that's a detriment to any leader, thinking that the people below him are going to be able to do the same as them, and that's not always the case, And so having it be Neil, who's the one saying my legs aren't as long as yours, I can't do these things, and it relates back to what KB had said to her earlier in that episode as well, like standing up to her, saying you've been ignoring my issues and I've been telling you what's going on, that the snow is affecting my systems. You're not listening, and now I'm shutting down, and so. There was a nice pushback here. And Fern, instead of pouting, getting upset or whatever, learned the lesson by the time she came back in. And even when Wim, who she felt that she had really insulted, Wim was like, no, you figured it out. That's all that matters, right? That was very emotionally mature of him not to be caught up in his feelings for once about this situation and handle his stuff. And I thought the tenderness between Wim and KB was beautiful. Like that's the word I would use, is beautiful. And Kevin, I think you nailed it. It's not just, someone in a wheelchair, it's someone with any kind of physical thing they're dealing with in life, right? They're always made to feel as an other. I've seen that with asthma growing up through my life. I've seen it with diabetes. And then you see certain things that kids are suffering more and more nowadays with chemicals in the food and in the air and stuff. So you see new and the tougher things they have to endure and overcome that make them feel a little bit like less than normal. So the way Wim was like all about trying to help her and listen to her and did what he needed to do to save her, even though he was nervous about doing it, I thought was really great. So that when they all ended up back together, they'd gone on their journeys, learned their lessons, and come even stronger together. So the shedding of the skin and the symbolism of that was so perfect, because they've shed the skin of the old way they were together, and now they're a new crew that's very much in line with each other and focused and going forward. As far as the Jod stuff, that was just standard. That is just great stuff with a charming rogue who is able to talk his way in and out of situations, and by the end, get everybody on board. And I thought that speech, this is why you cast Jude Law to deliver a speech like that about Hungary and all of that stuff. It so worked. It was so effective. And, we're going to see what happens in episode 7 because of that speech. But it made all the sense in the world that he would be the one to kind of turn them around on it. I compared it to Shakespeare, like that it was Mark Antony talking about Brutus, talking about, they tell me that this is a great person. They tell me that this is a great person, but in fact, this is actually what's going on. And so he kind of turned it around a little bit, which I was very impressed by the end. So, yeah. All right. Anything more to say on that episode, or shall we jump into episode 7?
Shout out to the pirate shanty. I enjoyed the hell out of that too. It was just a small thing, but I really enjoyed it. And yeah, good call shouting out the speech. They do use the word criffing out loud in this episode, which I feel like we haven't heard a lot of, or have we not heard a lot of it recently? Did they use it a bunch in the Clone Wars? And I don't remember. It's like one of those words that's written in the books a lot.
Oh wow.
In comics, but I don't hear it very often, and it sort of stuck out when I heard it in this episode.
I grew up from the age where all the cussing was blast. I felt like blast was like blast. It meant like F you, fuck.
Nice. Blast. Yeah, we got criffing now too. So now there's a variety.
There's a great Russian word that my wife, if she stubs her toe or something, she'll shout it, and that's always funny. Yeah. Sorry.
For those who don't know, criffing is a quote derogatory modifier and vulgar expletive based on the word criff, often used by Republic soldiers during the war on Rusan and by Han Solo, of course, and Captain Lon Shabo of the Galactic Alliance Guard. So yeah, criffin or criffin, criff it all, criff off, the criff out of criff this and criff up.
Hey, watch! Come on, this is a family show.
Smurf it all. All right. So anyway, let's move on to episode 7.
What was the cuss word in frack? Frack. They always use that in Battlestar Galactica. Frackin' man.
Frackin'.
Frack you, dude.
Remember in Andor when they actually used the word shit? That was fun.
Yes.
And didn't you all think that Fiona, when she was going to say the first F-bomb ever?
Oh yeah.
During the holographic. Yeah.
You have to admit that would have landed better than Criff. Criff the Empire does not have as good of a ring to it.
You imagine that.
Oh man, yeah. Criff the Empire. Is there any other ones? I don't know. Druck, Krong. Are these the other ones? Carabast, Slimo.
Carabast, yeah.
Slimo.
We heard Slimo.
Isn't the one that they added again, Kalunke or whatever?
Yeah.
Rito says.
Yes. Well, there you go. Those are the.
We're reenacting the George Carlin thing.
The 7 words you can't say on television. All right, let's get into episode 7 here. Let's talk about it. This is going to be called. This is called "We're Going to Be in So Much Trouble." Directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who also did Minari and Twister's feature films, but also directed season 3, episode 3 of The Mandalorian. And John Watts and Christopher Ford returned back to writing this particular episode. So, Laura Kelly, your thoughts on this episode? Did it work for you? What did you think of this thing? We had Jod go full heel in this episode, shall we say. The kids were totally scared, got reunited. We got to At Attin, and we see Jod getting bathed in gold Old Republic credits like a maniac, and then by the end pulling his lightsaber on the parents and the kids, essentially to threaten them and stay in control after he killed Brutus on the on the ship there earlier in the episode. So your thoughts overall here before we dive into specific sections?
Honestly, I don't think there was anything I disliked about this episode. There's the whole part where they're like calling claimsies on the ship, and I remember walking away from it being like, God, that really should have been stupid, but they somehow pulled it off. Like, that was actually funny and delightful and charming, and it wasn't like as dumb on the surface as it sounds like it should have been. So I don't know. It worked for me. I loved seeing Jod's heel turn. This is not something we normally see in Star Wars. I know that John is sick of seeing so many redemption arcs for all these characters. It's probably a very much of a relief to actually get to see someone really go bad. Time will tell. Who knows what we'll get out of the last episode, but I was not expecting this for Jod, a kid who clearly like grew up learning how to use the Force. He still has some mastery of it. Like it's really shocking. So I think this is a really interesting turn for Star Wars in general, as well for the character. I really liked getting back to At Attin finally, and like getting to really see a lot more. And getting a lot more detail about this planet and who knows what and when they learn it, like all of that kind of stuff has been so interesting to me along the way, and all sort of culminated down into this episode. So I'll be curious to see how much more At Attin lore we get in the last episode, like how much time they spend on that, because it felt like we got a decent amount in this episode. But I thought that was overall really interesting. And yeah, Jod, I think, really shined. Jod Na really shined in this episode in particular of all the ones that he's been in. So this was great. The 1139 call out too. A lot of people interpreting that differently than I did. So I'll be curious to hear what your guys' theory is on that little Easter egg. I missed what you said. The 1139, the call out at the very end, it was like the number of vaults that they have on At Attin. But yeah, we'll circle back to that.
Yeah. So what'd you think there, Kevin, overall, this particular episode? I mean, you had Jod beheading SM-33. You had him threatening the kids. I take back what I said. He might have actually cut or killed Fern when he was lobbying for the ship with a knife through her throat. It feels like it's very possible he would have actually killed her. So what did you think of this episode? Did it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fine. Oh, here, am I hearing echo? No. It was a fine episode. I thought the performances were all very well, good. Jod Na obviously crushed it in the last two episodes. I don't know this. I feel like I don't know what's missing for me on it, and I think I'll get into it. It was my first point. I was destined to make our first episode we covered. And right when we started, for some reason, I don't know, I remember I was having technical difficulties and I didn't have my notes, and then I forgot about it and I never got back to it. And before we wrap on this episode, I could talk to you about my overall feelings when I first saw it and where I'm at now with it almost being over. But yeah, Jod Na, it makes you wonder, like the bleeding of the crystal, like Anakin's crystal didn't bleed when he lit the lightsaber and he was about to slaughter kids. But when he's, have this lightsaber, it's the first time he's touching this new lightsaber that was someone else's. If the rules apply, and he's literally threatening to like chop up piece by piece. He's as Norm Macdonald used to say, that guy's a real jerk. Norm Macdonald would read like the news, and it would be like this terrible person who like murdered his family and killed their cats and stuff. And he's like, you know what? That guy's a real jerk. Any Norm Macdonald fans in the comments below, let me know that I'm not on an island with that reference. But yeah, and I thought a brutal kill on Brutus, that was cool. I think he is beyond the point of redemption and I do agree that there are too many redemptions in Star Wars, but this was one that I think that I would enjoy the show more if he was more torn and you knew he was this swashbuckling pilot but with a heart of gold in the inside, and they're not doing that. This is what they should have done with Kylo. Let's be honest. Kylo, the original plan was him just getting darker and darker. He was a reverse Vader. Vader started evil and slowly got to the light side, and Kylo was supposed to be, before they started throwing everything around, Kylo was supposed to be questioning himself in the light, and then all of a sudden ending the trilogy with him at his most darkest. It was a reverse Vader. I don't know why I keep doing that. And this felt like this character is one that should have had I don't know. For me, I don't know how they're going to end it, but I don't want him to be redeemed now. I think you can't threaten kids like that, man. Like, as a parent too, I'm just like, I want to like wring the guy's neck. But I'm interested to see where it goes. My overall thoughts are just, and I think it was because I had to watch. I've been dealing with some stuff that I had to watch 2 episodes back to back. But for me, I'm just like, I wasn't like like normally if I think I missed something, like I'll rewind it to like see what I missed, and I wasn't doing that. I'm like, John and Laura will catch me up on that part, you know. And I don't know why, and I understand. I love the nostalgia. I love the call outs and the visual moments and the homages, but I'm just not that interested in it. I don't really need to know more about At Attin. But I'm interested to see where it goes, and I am very appreciative of the performances of these kids too, with the tears going down their eyes, and they're scared. Like you feel that fear from Jod, but like, I think Jod's gonna have to come to an end. Like in the next, we have one episode left, right?
One episode, next week.
Do we have the runtime on that or no?
Not that I saw. I checked it earlier.
I heard it's gonna be 22 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
Mandalorian style.
Yeah.
I totally understand why you guys are loving it, and I want to. I wish to.
Be honest. Yeah, you're being honest.
And it's not there for me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Like Acolyte, I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it. I was kind of right in the middle. This one, but I had feelings about Acolyte, like strong feelings. This one, I have no strong feelings one way or the other. I'm just like. Right. Yeah.
We're related with Andor. This is so funny and so interesting.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I feel like the tables have turned. I'm like, I don't get it. Everybody loves it, and I don't get it. I don't hate it. I just don't get it.
If you don't mind, let me tell you my overall reasons why. And the one thing I was supposed to say at the beginning of the series coverage is that I just feel when I do the Star Wars Super Watch, I have this list. I could send it to anybody who ever asks for it, but it's literally like I do a mix of the canon and non-canon stuff. But like it's overall like what you could do to like watch all of Star Wars and feel like a complete story. But every show, even the shows that weren't that popular, like Resistance, tied into the larger narrative, right? Clone Wars obviously tied into the larger narrative, and it's not just Skywalker; it's just the overall fate of the galaxy, as I like to say. Andor, obviously, Rebels, Andor mixed with Rogue One, even Solo, a Star Wars story, because that's seen Han Solo and how you come into it. Ahsoka, Mandalorian, even Book of Boba Fett. These all had larger tie-ins to the whole thing. This one feels so separate, which I believe is still a good thing for Star Wars, but for me, it's so separate on its own thing that it could have been its own individual IP with space pirates and everything else without lightsabers and Star Wars, and it would be great. And it's like when you throw this on, it reminds me of like, and this people might not know that, but I wasn't really a fan of Creed 3 because Creed 3, they literally got rid of Rocky Balboa. They don't even tie in or have any mentions of it, and it's because of legal stuff with filmmakers and Sylvester Stallone. But to me, when you watch the trilogy, it just feels like this is so separate, even though it's the same character. And for me, this show, I just don't know if it needed to be a Star Wars show, and I think that's why I'm just like, I don't think I'd rewatch it in the Star Wars Super Watch because I know where it would go in the timeline, but like this is a real as you say, detour from trying to just get to the overall thing. And it's not just about the Skywalker saga or story. It's even about how like Acolyte tied into greater things about the Sith, and you had Plagueis in there. And this feels so separate from it. And I used to call for shows like this, and I guess seeing it in practice, it just kind of fell flat for me. So that's it.
Okay.
All right. Sorry.
No, please.
But other than that, I love it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I actually love the way this show's going. Yeah, I'm a complete opposite of Kevin. I enjoy the pacing that it's doing. I enjoy that I don't have to have it all connected up. There are Easter eggs. There are things that they mentioned that are going on that we know chronologically are going on at this time in Star Wars, and so it all makes sense. We'll see how much of it when they land the ship in the next episode will be connected to the overall Star Wars story, and maybe that'll clarify things a bit more for how Kevin would install it in his Star Wars rewatch. We'll see. I wonder. But for me, I love this episode. I really did. I liked the way they leaned into him. My reaction is up on my channel now, and I am cursing up a storm as Jod gets more evil as the episode goes along, because it's very brutal. It's not evil like playful Long John Silver, fun novel reading evil. He was full of, when he's berating the kids and personally going after women, Fern, two of the most sensitive ones there, like going after them for daring to even think they could lead, a woman and a young kid of color. There's something very strong in that scene to, like, if you're looking at it as surface way, but if you're looking at it on a number of levels, there's something very hard about watching something like that. I've experienced teachers telling me I'm never going to succeed or I'm nothing or I'm not going to be anything. I think other people have experienced that before from people who are older, who look at them and don't like that they're talking too much or don't like that they're inquisitive or whatever, or think they could achieve more. They want to berate them and keep them down because that's their own stuff coming out because they're jealous of seeing promise in a young kid. And so I see that anger coming through and him threatening them with his lightsaber, beheading SM-33, who's arguably the most beloved character of the series, to do it in such a brutal manner after, of course, getting knocked the fuck out by SM-33 earlier in the episode. It just is heartbreaking to see that go down the way it does. And having this short-lived reunion at the end with the parents being completely turned into this menacing ending with, once again, him lighting the lightsaber as he did 2 episodes ago, I think leaves us with this feeling of like, no, I don't want a redemption. I don't care what happened to him. I don't care what happened to him as a kid. I don't give a crap about any of that. I think he needs to be put in some prison and tortured in some way or whatever, because it's horrible what he did to these kids and how he threatened them and what have you. And then how he killed Brutus in such a cold manner in a helpless position. And again, Brutus is not a good guy, but in a helpless position held by a claw, easily walking up and shooting him straight in the head. There's a brutality that I did not expect from a show like this. And I very much appreciate it, so I kind of like that overall as it was going. And the kids were great. So, what have you. But let's break down specific things and then, as we do the review here. But we open with the parents on in a force on At Attin. They get caught by the safety droids here and stunned for trying to send out a transmitter with a message to the kids. Fran's the one that succeeds after all the other parents get stunned, which the stun thing is actually really kind of interesting. It reminded me, I know people might get mad at me for saying this, but it reminded me of Zack Snyder's Justice League when they're trying to pass the mother box. The Amazons are trying to pass the mother box onto each other before what's-his-face finally gets stepped in.
Reference.
Yeah, it just kind of feels that way. Then we cut to the Onyx Center, and the kids are being kids, happy, going home, except for Wim, who feels guilty. Laura, I got to know what you think about the parent situation, and what's the deal with Wim here? Like, for one moment, he's crying that he misses his home. The adventure's not going the way he's going. And now when the kids are happy and they're heading back, now he's upset that they even went on this adventure. I'm very confused, maybe because this is a child with a lot of emotions. What do you think is opening, and what do you think about Wim's reaction here as the kids are trying to calm him down,
Honestly, I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to Wim. I was also just like, wait a minute, like why are you upset now? Like you wanted to get off. Okay. So I'm also a little bit confused. My main reaction at that scene where he was like moping a little bit. I mean, first of all, I thought it was funny that he was like, I'm still gonna have to take my assessment after all this. I'm like, that does seem like such small potatoes. So I do kind of get your frustration, but that part was funny. Yeah. But the fact that he admits at that moment, he's like, I never should have hit the stupid button that blasted us off of At Attin. And everyone in the room is like, oh, it's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm like, wait, why is no one mad? Someone should be mad. There should be one person in the group that's like, wait, what? This was your fault? Like, we're just no, this is new information. And I'm upset about it. And nobody had that reaction. So it's fine. My one gripe maybe with this episode, when I was watching this sort of tag team and handing off the communications device, I was like, I don't know if this makes a lot of sense. I'm like, were they all running ahead? And that's like, how did you know where they were going to get stunned? Exactly when that was going to happen? It's fine. I get what they were going for, but I was kind of watching it like, I don't know about this. But we got where we needed to go with it. They needed to get the device somehow up into the air. And that thing somehow made it through the buoy with all of the information that they hacked magically. So that was fun. But yeah, I walked away from the thing with Wim a little bit confused as well. I was just like, oh my God, like, why are you pouting? Why
well, as a parent, now? As a parent,
ask Kevin as a parent.
Yeah, when my daughter is like, please make me mac and cheese, and then you make mac and cheese, and all of a sudden she's like, I don't want mac and cheese, I want this. And you're like, what? Make up your mind. Or yeah. So Wim is par for the course. For sure.
He's a sullen kid. Kevin, what did you think? Do you like the? Oh, well, what do you think is opening? Like with the parents getting stunned. This is something I don't think I've seen in Star Wars in a consistent way. And then Farrah being the one that sends it up, and they know who they are. They know who these parents are.
The brave parent of Neil. I don't know what her name is. Where she's like,
Nira,
I'll take it. You just get like threatened. You're gonna get stunned, and she's like, I'm going anyway. Like she's the hero of that scene, man. She's the first one out. But yeah, that was cool. It reminded me of also with the Infinity Gauntlet. Rocha, when they're running, if you don't want to cite Zack Snyder, you could always go with the Infinity Gauntlet when they're running with like Black Panther and then Spider-Man and stuff. But yeah, I thought as far as this episode goes, the production quality was great, and
Yeah.
it does feel like in the pacing of it, it's a good, outstanding way to start the episode with kind of a high energy thing. And again, it's cool to get the parents involved in kind of an action-y scene, because they're every scene they've just been sitting around like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Looking out the window. So yeah.
Good point.
We've been building to this moment, right? Because they've gone from what are we going to do to we're going to sneak around and do something to why are you doing that when we should be doing this? And then boom, let's send this thing out because we're all on the same page about it for sure. Well, next we move on. We move to Jod on the frigate with Brutus and his crew after the I am hungry speech. He has brought them to At Attin, but there is a maelstrom covering At Attin. Brutus is ready to toss him through an airlock when Jod says it's a trick. SM-33 backs him up with that assessment. He offers to test it, but Brutus knows better than to let him go solo in a ship through that maelstrom and sends one of his own instead, who does not return. So Jod gets tossed into the airlock, but just as he's about to get shot out here, the Onyx Cinder appears, and Jod does some quick thinking here and says the ship is the key, and Brutus uses the tractor beam to beam the ship aboard. And as they head down to the hangar to commandeer the Onyx, we get this weird Jod and Brutus back and forth about who the crew loves more. And after Brutus threatens the kids, they ensnare him in a claw, and the crew could care less about this whole situation. So I guess we get our answer. And they threaten to kill him if they don't let him go. But again, the kids misunderstand the lesson from the previous episode. Pirates care nothing for other people's lives. They should have threatened the treasure. They don't. And Jod instead takes the opportunity to kill Brutus brutally right in the head and commandeer the Onyx Cinder because he knows that these are the kids. So, Kevin, your thoughts on this whole situation with Jod begging for his life, figuring things out, thinking on the fly, and in the end, actually getting in control of the whole situation by killing Brutus and understanding it's the kids and he can walk right through them like melted butter.
Yeah, that's why I like doing shows with you, John, because like you always open up like I didn't think about that angle of like they didn't learn their lesson that they should have threatened the treasure, not the pirate. And I thought that like that's the heel turn right there. That's the Marty Jannetty. That's the Shawn Michaels throwing super kicking Marty Jannetty and throwing him through the glass when he shoots Brutus, and then obviously more when
Laura
he's
gets that reference.
Laura totally knows what I'm talking about. But anyways, yeah, I do like where all the pirates are less like they need a lead, like they need someone to lead them. They're not all of those pirates. They're not like, you don't have Urkel running up like I'll be the pirate leader now. Like they need someone. There's a lot of as Loki said, he used to say that we humans need to be led or whatever. We need a leader like that. So I thought that was entertaining, that part, and I thought it was brave on the kids' part to like take the crane. Smart too, take the crane. Yeah, it didn't work out for them, but and then obviously the master plan of we're going to know that Jod sneaks into the ship for that whole sequence too. The ship is the key. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Laura, what did you think about that? What did you think about Jod's plan? Were you seeing that coming ahead? Were you see that, or was that kind of surprise when he popped in the ship?
I mean, shooting Brutus. I don't know if that was part of the plan all along, but that was a shock, actually. I mean, I was surprised when that part happened. I did think that while Brutus and Jod were like walking along, and Brutus tells Jod that he will kill him, treasure or not. And I'm like, what a stupid thing to say. Like, what do you expect him to do now? He knows that you're not going to be good on your word no matter what word you give. So yeah, the fact that I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that he then shot him, but I don't know. I'm going to defend Jod at the end of this. Don't get mad. I'm not going to get into it now, but
those kids had it coming. Those whiny little bitches.
Honestly, I'll start with this. The only person he actually like kills are pirates. Those are the only deaths that he actually causes. The rest of it, he's kind of all talk. So
what if I never killed anyone, but then you saw me like lift up a little 6-year-old and like threatened him by the neck? Wow, am I not so bad?
No, I mean, it was all words though. Like he's holding the lightsaber, but he's not like holding it it's not burning them or anything. He's not that close. So I don't know. That's my only thought at this point. I'll be curious to see where his story ends in this season. But I also want to highlight that there's one woman, like the older woman pirate. I think the actress is also on Orange is the New Black. The character's name is Chelt, I think, and she's kind of the one that like throughout this series she tends to be the one defending Jod. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's supposed to just be our hint that when Jod says, the crew loves me, they like you more than they like you, Brutus. I don't know if that's supposed to be like backing up that statement, or if there's like something else there, if they have some other kind of like bond that they haven't like dug into, because this isn't the first time that she's sort of given him special treatment
Great points.
as the one person on this crew that has some sort of sympathy for him. This is like the third or fourth time in the series that's happened. So I'm curious to know more.
Yeah, that's played by Dale Souls. She's a really good actress, both theater and on camera. And so giving her this part is really interesting. And she voiced Darby Steele in the Lightyear animated film that came out a couple years ago that people didn't seem to like, which I liked. People didn't seem to like it. And so having her play this part, I think, is really fun. Because, of course, you've got who's the other? Was it Kano? Is that the other woman that's on the ship? Kona, played by Cissa Gray. So those are the only two like female energies on the ship. And they're hardcore energies. You know, her like, wait a minute, you know, stopping Jod from getting sent out of the airlock. You know, she was trying to figure out something to save him. But in the end, it worked out for him, right? Because you're right, Laura, they might have a connection. I didn't even put together what Brutus said to him, like, treasure or not, I'll kill you, you know? And so you're like, oh, well, then you've removed, you know, any kind of issue I might have in ending your life.
I think he needs to play things a little more closer to the chest next time.
Well, he's a wolf, so what are you going to do? He's a little aggressive. All right, so anyway, Jod becomes this Captain Silvo person again, puts on the helmet. We're back to episode 1, for God's sakes. He has come full circle. He is back in charge of the ship. They plot their attack on At Attin. Oh, by the way, I didn't ask you guys, what do you think of the visuals of At Attin? Do you like the green maelstrom? Does this work for you guys? Like, did you like the visual of this looking like essentially a shield? What do you think, Kevin? Did you like that?
Yeah, I thought it was a creative way to do it. It was like it reminds me of something, and I can't put my finger on it, where something else was always hidden. You always thought like you couldn't go past it. Maybe it was
the Kessel Run. Like
it was one of the early Planet of the Apes movies. Like they always thought they couldn't go beyond this one part because there was like a wall of fire, but that was just always like I don't know. I think that was from like one of the bad ones, but yeah, very cool, creative.
So the Tim Burton one, gotcha. What did you think of the look of it, Laura? Did you think that was effective in the way it was portrayed?
I was getting Kessel Run from Solo vibes as I I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. I thought that was. I kind of hadn't given much thought to what I thought how that was going to be represented on screen, like how they were actually going to like physically hide At Attin. And I think that they pulled it off really well. I would have never been able to come up with that. So I thought it was a really creative way to go about it. And like the way that we got to see the barrier from the other side, I just thought was really interesting. Just more At Attin lore that I wanted all along. But at the same time, I'm really glad that it unfolded the way that it did slowly and kind of peeling the onion back very slowly, I think worked really well for this.
Yeah. As I said, Jod becomes Captain Silvo. They plot their attack on At Attin and intercept the transmission from the children's parents. This has definitely Leia vibes, Galen Erso vibes here. Interesting that we never see his face reacting to the words from the kids' parents because he's in that helmet. It's interesting. So what does that mean? Is that mean anything or maybe nothing? Who knows? The kids are clearly moved to hear their parents' words. I think I've got a picture of that somewhere here. Do I? Or no, I guess I don't have it up. Oh, well. Well, anyway,
that was a cool scene.
The Pharaoh reveals that the children should find a Republic emissary as they will know about At Attin and be able to get back safely. We also hear that the children would eventually learn everything about their home world once they graduated at 18 years old. I know there have been some theories roaming around out there, and it seemed to kind of poke all holes in those theories. So we will see what's the truth there. Fern suggests that they need to work on a plan, but Wim screams, attack, and charges into the cockpit, and then they are quickly captured there. However, when Joe tells SM-33 to detain them, SM-33 says, you can't be captain of two ships there. And just as Wim is about to maybe lay claim on the Onyx Cinder, Jod puts his hand over his mouth and says, I lay claim to this. And then as Laura referenced, Fern steps forward and goes, I called on claimsies, and declares the ship for the children. And just when we're thinking maybe this is kind of stupid, there's no way this is going to work, and Jod thinks he's got this thing set up, SM-33 knocks him out, absolutely knocks him out. And then we see that he gets Henry Cavill and Mission Possible again, and he takes out all the pirates as we see. And they take off. And At Attin, it looks like they're safe. Jod's going to have to catch up. But nope, Jod has snuck onto the ship. And before we get to the moment, though, there's a really beautiful moment where the kids are looking at Attin from above. And it reminded me a lot of for people to know that Into the Woods musical from Stephen Sondheim. There's a thing that Jack says about his home when he's standing atop the beanstalk. He never saw it that way from this far away, and how beautiful it was, because all he wanted to do was run from it. And I think having the kids stand on the bridge and then look at Attin and reappreciate where they came from, I thought was a really beautiful moment to show that sometimes just because you're inside of something, you can't see what it looks like from the outside. Once you get outside, you have a whole nother perspective and you can look at it in a different way, which I thought was great. They get sucked into a landing sequence, and then, as I said, Jod appears. He sneaked onto the ship, and he goes full heel here as he beheads SM-33, insults all the kids, especially Fern and Wim, in a brutal, ugly way, and then threatens to kill their parents if they don't shut up and let him think of a way to get out of the situation and communicate with the frigate once he lands on At Attin. So, Kevin, your thoughts on the situation here and how it all went down? You were mentioning Jod sneaking onto the ship. Your thoughts on how this laid out? Did it work for you?
Yeah, and I think that it's a good opportunity to like add stakes to like how the kids feel about their planet now. I think they've been trying their whole life looking off planet, and now that they're seeing how beautiful it is, and you're getting presented with a situation that the planet might be in danger. So I thought that like I said, I thought that was a good aspect of the episode. And then his full heel turn, it just makes me worry if they try to give him a redemption, that's like, you're not reading the room. That's a little tone deaf. Like I feel like but then again, we've seen patricide and get redeemed in Star Wars. So, if you kill your own father, maybe you can, threaten a couple kids. But I just thought that the kids acting in this scene was especially good, because you could say a lot without saying anything. They weren't yelling. Some of them were saying stuff back and forth, but mostly it was in the visuals. You really see the fear, and that's when you realize they're kids. Yeah, they don't know what this person's gonna do, and he was just so mean to all of them, like just saying all these mean. He's just a real jerk. Yeah, to quote us. And by the way,
here's the hologram picture.
Kudos to Jude Law's performance in that. When you can get someone to really, you see a little bit of his madness.
Yes.
It's kind of like that dragon sickness in The Hobbit with Thorin. When you get around so much wealth, you could kind of change your personality, and it becomes a disease. So
does that happen to people who get wealthy? I've never noticed that before on social media.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. Let me know. They take over things. Anyway, all right, Laura, your thoughts on this section here? Jod's heel turn, and then how he talks to the kids here at the end before they head off that ad.
They did refer to him as the Mad Captain Silvo earlier in this episode, so I don't recall them ever using that adjective in addition to the name before. So yeah, interesting tie in there. Also, very good pull with Into the Woods, John. Mad respect.
Thank you.
With that,
Thank you.
Love it. There's some really funny bits in this. We talked about the sort of calling claimsies already, but there's also it's so small, but it's just a funny moment when Wendell is saying that they know the location of At Attin and like how to get through the barrier, but like don't tell anyone where you're from. And Jod just intersects and just goes, "Whoops!" Like it's just small, but it's perfect. And I thought it was well placed. Yeah. Also, like Jod getting punched by 33's arm from off screen appearing was so funny, like laugh out loud funny. I thought that was perfect. But yeah, very sad to see 33 get beheaded by the end. I have to believe that he's gonna be okay. Eventually. I mean, like C-3PO full on loses his head in the arena in the prequels. So hopefully we're able to repair him at some point, because I need more 33. I really find him to be an endearing character, and I just want to know more. So to see him land in a heap on the floor was very sad. Jod looks down while Wim is crying and says, "Poor boy," and calls them weak, sheltered, spoiled children. And in a way, he's not totally wrong. They are sheltered, spoiled kids. I think they're stronger than he's giving them credit for in that moment, but they're sheltered, and that's pretty much everyone on At Attin. So he's making some good points, but I really enjoyed watching that his performance in that moment, Jude Law's, and kind of I don't know. I'm like, am I reading into it too much where I'm just like, yeah, that sounds like sounds like something somebody would say if they were like, say, raised as a warrior in the Jedi Temple during the Clone Wars and had to, like, yeah, you're probably going to see these kids and be like, you spoiled, sheltered kids. You don't know anything about them. You have no idea. We still don't know kind of what he's been through in his life. So at the end of the day, he did not physically harm anybody except Brutus and 33. He did not actually lay a hand on the kids. So I'm not totally willing to like write Jod off at this moment. I'm not that extreme yet. I'm not saying I think he should be redeemed. I'm just open to what comes next.
That's fair.
Before we move on, I think that it's ill-placed too that they wait till 18 to tell him the truth, because like by the time you're 18, you know, at that point you're going to feel like you've been lied to. You know, like I feel like if the earlier you tell them, the better. Like because then it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I've never been in a situation, but like with adopted children, like I feel like if they're not told, and I mean, maybe look, I have no knowledge of it, so I don't want to get it too real world, but I just feel like it might be better to tell the kids a little earlier on. I feel like when they're 18, they're like, I've not this whole time, and half of them are going to figure it out. You might as well tell them when they're like 4 or 5, so then they kind of just, you know, understand the game.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Can I talk to Kevin's child? Yeah, I want to tell.
Hey, wait a second.
There's no Santa Claus. There's no Santa Claus. There's no Easter Bunny. You better know now. There's no Tooth Fairy.
Great. Now she can't watch this episode. Thanks. I wish there was no Santa Claus because our fucking Barbie dream house is the size of a real house. It's insane.
Easy joke. Easy joke. All right, let's move on to the last section. The parents are in a room being held by the supervisor of safety droids, waiting to get chewed out, apparently. But suddenly a message comes through announcing the arrival of a Republic frigate, and they know that it's the kids from KB's tracker, the two moms figuring that out. Jod and the children land on At Attin, and the safety droids greet them, but they treat Jod like he's a Republic emissary. So this is interesting. And he, of course, thinking on his feet, quickly assumes that. And all the emissaries of the Republic must be immediately escorted to the mint below At Attin, which in that moment, I'm like, that's interesting. Why is that happening in this way? We have not seen the supervisor. I'll be damned if the supervisor doesn't have security and cameras everywhere to watch what's happening here. So curious. Then Jod, the children, and the ship are lowered into the ground as their parents watch, and we go underground to this massive vault full of old Republic credits. The droids recognize the missing children as from At Attin, but before they can do anything, Jod requested the droids keep them on the Onyx Cinder while they wait for their parents to collect them. Jod asks the droids about how many vaults are beneath there on At Attin as he's walking into one of them. And the droid says, lower reference, 1,139 vaults, which of course is one more than THX 1138, which is to George Lucas reference there. He falls to his knees, though, once he sees the gold here, and almost showers himself in the gold of the Old Republic credits, laughing maniacally at how rich he is going to be. The children are finally beautifully reunited with their parents. If you watch my reaction, I get real emotional with Wim and his dad hugging. But Jod lights his lightsaber because that reunion is short-lived as he walks out and essentially implies that he will be threatening the parents. So, Laura, your thoughts on this final section of the show and how it went out and revealed the mint there from At Attin? Did it feel like they're going to build this as a part of Star Tours? And what did you think of this whole section here?
Actually, that's a really good idea. I would be into that idea. I like it. I want to circle back to Farah's office, where they were hanging out, and we see this, like, I don't know if it was a painting or a carving or some kind of tapestry on the wall.
Oh, yes.
Apparently, so I wanted to talk about this on Blue Sky, and somebody mentioned that, like, we had seen this in Farah's office before. I'm like, well, I didn't notice it. I noticed this time, and I have thoughts. This looks like something straight out of the High Republic Phase 2. The mother is the cult leader that is kind of the head honcho in Phase 2, and this imagery is giving that quite a bit. So that was interesting to see. I'm very curious to know more about what that was, because I saw a couple other people mention, like, oh, it's like a little bit Mortis gods in terms of the imagery, but you've got obviously all women in it. There's 2 women that are kneeling at either side of the central figure. I just thought it was so interesting, and I just want to know more. I don't know if this is just more to like suck me into At Attin and wanting to know everything about it, but if it is, it worked. And I hope we circle back and touch on it at some point in the final episode, but I won't be surprised if we don't. There's a lot to cover and not a lot of time to do it. There's a funny bit again where the kids are all standing behind Jod right when he's first being greeted on the landing platform before it started to descend. And the droid still makes a point of turning to the kids and being like, travel outside the barrier is not permitted. And it's just funny. We still have to like hit that moment home again. The Republic Mint is so interesting. I never would have guessed that is what it looks like. And I never would have guessed that they have 1,100 of them apparently still placed throughout At Attin. That's wild to me. When they first dropped that little Easter egg, my first thought was, that's one more than 1138.
Yeah.
Let me guess what's going to happen to this vault. I feel like that's just a hint that there's like something's going to happen to it so we can get back down to that number. But I haven't seen that theory anywhere else. I don't know. I feel like a couple people I've seen have just been like, oh, it's just like they just can't help themselves. They just have to give that one little shout out to 11th. But I don't know. I feel like that has to be something. I'm curious to see what happens, but I feel like that vault's going to get destroyed. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. The whole thing with Stephen Fry being the voice of the supervisor. Again, I posted this on Blue Sky last night, but I feel like there's got to be that connection there. I went back and watched the Captain Renan speech from episode 5 of this show and trying to decide if that sounded like Stephen Fry or not. If you go listen to Stephen Fry's performance of Hagrid and the Harry Potter audiobooks, sounds very, very similar to what you're getting with Captain Renan. So I think Stephen Fry is... we know he's the supervisor. I think he's also Captain Renan, and I think he's still alive. I know that there's been like a couple. I don't know. I don't think it's a recording. I think he's like some alien that lives a long time. And that's why we don't see his face in episode 5. I think he's still alive. I'll be very curious to see.
He's like that little alien in Men in Black, like monitoring the head, like maneuvering the head. Maybe that's quite.
Or like Yoda. He's just a species that lives a long time. I don't know. Maybe he's like Yoda.
Yeah. Here's the mural you're talking about, I think, Laura. Is that correct? This is the mural you're talking about?
No, that was a different one. I didn't realize, man, she's got lots of artwork in her office.
Yeah.
No, there's another one that's like, it's more symmetrical and it's less colorful. It's like a kind of beige color. It looks more like a carving or something, but I think it is some kind of tapestry.
I'll keep looking. Kevin, your thoughts on this section of the show, how it ends, where we go, the mania of Jod and the gold showering on him. Your thoughts on all of this? You're muted, buddy.
I'm seeing that my battery on my phone or my camera is about to die too. So if my image cuts out, give me a minute. I'll come back. But
sounds good.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought the ending. I thought it was well paced. Like I said, I have liked this episode. I thought the last 2 episodes I've actually really liked in the execution of it. For me, it's just as a whole, I'm not really inspired or like caught on to it, but I thought it was cool. It felt like it was probably the volume when he's like looking up at like the going down, but like it was, he did a good job of like showing like, wow, look at this, like look at the operation you got here, like that was cool. And it's interesting to see where we're gonna go with the supervisor. And I just thought it was, we talk about a lot of these endings being kind of out of nowhere and stuff. And I thought that the ending for this one was like pitch perfect of him. And also it's kind of related to the first episode where you cut to black when he ignites the lightsaber. And now you get to see him ignite the lightsaber. And I thought too, the parents getting back with their kids, you get that nice moment and then you're like, but you're not out of the woods yet. Now you got to deal with this maniac, So all in all, I thought that we'll see how they land the ship, as they say. But this episode, I did like it. And I thought that his shot with the gold really informs us of like just how mad like for gold and treasure he is.
Yeah. What it symbolizes, right? And Laura, I mean, if you look at Jod after this episode, I think what you brought up is an interesting thing to consider, because I do I wanted him to pay as I was watching the episode, but you might make an excellent point. Like, this is a guy reverting back to these things because these are defense mechanisms for him. Berating these kids, lighting the lightsaber, threatening everybody around him, because he's actually a scared little man who has had to adapt to this way of existence in order to survive in a tough galaxy. So there may be something there. Yeah, I'm going to put it up in just a second.
Cool.
Yeah. But like that's the
situation. I'm doing it guerrilla style. Sorry, I don't have your
I
fancy
appreciate
computer.
I took the picture guerrilla style, so it works.
Yeah, I like that. So now I'm going into episode 8 going, okay, I wonder now what the end result is. Are we going to discover that there's much more to him than we thought? And does he have a connection in some way to all of this? And what are they going to explain? So yeah, be curious to see. I did like the ending because the lighting of the lightsaber makes you feel like, okay, what's going to happen now going into the finale? And the vault thing was so incredible, so well done, so visually incredible. And yeah, I immediately thought of Star Tours, having recently done it. That could be totally an adventure as you're going through the vault and whatever. I think they have that for the Harry Potter rides, right? Where you're going through the banks or whatever that they have where all the money is. So
the Gringotts ride. You're right. They do have that.
So maybe cool. Something like that. But here's the mural that Kevin was holding up and Laura had caught on the show. So
Laura gets the photo credit.
Totally. Laura, you sent the photo.
Photo credit on the bottom left should say photo credit to Laura Kelly. Shut up, Laura. At shut up _ Laura.
On Blue Sky, Laura. So what were you explaining? So this does look a little bit like the Mortis gods, right? I mean, but these are both the mural that is in Farrah's house and this mural is like praise. It looks like it's praising a woman, right? Both of them are praising women. So what do you think of this? This is interesting.
Yeah, the fact that there's like, this feminine energy coming from, I mean, like it literally just like immediately jumped out to me as being so similar to this cult that's in the High Republic phase 2, where the mother is it seems to be this benevolent character, but ultimately she ends up being like super evil, as most cult leaders do. But it's she doesn't have like all women around her, so I don't think this is like a direct reference to that. It just like kind of feels a little bit like it. But yeah, the fact that it's like kind of Mortis-y, kind of like the culty from High Republic, but you've got like the feminine. I just love it. I think it's really cool, and I just want to know more. I feel like this is supposed to just be, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to just be some random background image because they linger on it. I mean, they hold that shot for a while where we really get to examine what's in that image. So I feel like it's got to be something, and I hope they dig into it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it there, again, kind of a sun type thing in the corner, and the woman there holding it up, and everyone looking at it, and the different things. I got a homie with his back turned. What does all of this mean? So some questions. This is the painting in Farrah's house, and you compare that to the mural here. It's a very interesting. I don't know, just interesting connective tissue between those two for sure. All right, so I think that's it. That's our spoiler review here for episode 7. We got to wrap up this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us in this conversation about James Mangold, our thoughts on episode 6, and then diving in deep into episode 7. Kevin, another fun show. Please let people know where they can find you. Any final words on the episode, and where they can find all the stuff you got coming up here that you're doing with the very busy life you have in Star Wars.
Yeah, thanks. We really haven't done anything. So Star Wars Squad might have been a bad name choice because it's not showing up on searches anymore, like yet. Because it's very when you type Star Wars Squad, you're getting a lot of those Star Wars squadrons and stuff. So stay tuned for that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like you can't like. It's not like when you search Smash City Studios, you would find it. So I can't tell you, hey, search Star Wars Squad right now, and you'd see my YouTube. You could probably go on YouTube and do it, but right now on Google and whatnot. But I haven't really done. Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Can you still hear me though?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you don't need to see my face for the rest of this anyway. But I did enjoy the show. I have enjoyed the last 2 shows in execution. They're doing great. Just don't know if it needed to be a Star Wars show, but I have enjoyed the performances. Kudos to the entire cast. Even the dad kind of redeemed himself. I thought he's been doing good. I don't know why I didn't like his first episode performance. And yeah, other than that, I am looking forward to seeing how they stick the landing.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Hey, look at hello. Orb.
You can pick a profile picture, right? You can pick a profile picture.
I don't know how to do. Come on.
All right. Well, Laura Kelly, as we wrap up here, please, another fun show with you. Always love talking Star Wars. Please let people know where they can find you and all you got going on.
Sure. I'm still on Twitter at @shutup_Laura, but probably not for much longer. I actually ended up deleting my Threads profile because I wasn't using it anyway. And now I have no intention to, because I really do want to commit to Blue Sky. So if you want to follow me on social media, you want to talk about Star Wars with me on social media, @Laura on Blue Sky is going to be the place to do it for now. I also activated the Force Toast account on Blue Sky, so you can find my other podcast at Force Toast Pod on Blue Sky as well.
Nice. Yes, I'm one of the last, I think, Twitter users. It's getting hairy in there, and more news. And I mean, it's tough to let go of 30,000 followers or over 30,000 followers, but it's just too much to be on there. Lydia Outlaw said to me, she goes, did you watch your I was scrolling through in the morning, and she goes, you should look at your face right now as you're doing this, because it is not a good face to be making. And I was like, you might be right. But for now, I am still on there at The Rocha Says. I'm also on Blue Sky at The Rocha Says as well. Please remember to subscribe to the channel down below, hit that bell button, and let us know what you thought about everything we talked about here in this episode, both the James Mangold stuff, our quick episode 6 thoughts, and our thoughts on episode 7. What stood out to you? What did we miss? What did you catch? Let us know all of it down there in the comments section below. Do you have your own pirate shanty that you've written? Let us know what the lyrics are. We'd love to hear it down there in the comments section below. Please remember to hit a like on this video, share it on your social media so you can let people know that we're doing the Star Wars shows. More and more people seem to be enjoying it, leaving wonderful comments down below. Thank you so much to everybody who's promoting it and talking about it. We appreciate you. And as we wrap up, Laura, Kelly, what do we have to tell? There you go. Look at him. What do we have to tell people?
This is a quick. I was trying to find something funny, and I was trying to get my FaceTime cameras not working, or the actual mag. I would have just come back on with the regular. It's not working. Sorry, I've created a whole mess. I apologize.
Oh, it's so good. Anyway, always remember your focus determines your reality.